This is Lesson 116 in Saxon's Algebra 1, the third edition. This is going to be a really short, easy lesson, I believe. It's called the quotient rule for square roots. And what we already know is that if we have the square root of 3 times 2, that it can be written as the square root of 3 times the square root of 2. In the same token, if we have a fraction under the square root, we can rewrite that as a fraction with each individual number having its own little square root sign. Now, here's where something different comes in. We know that the square root of the square times the square root of itself cancels out that square root sign. Like the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 equals just plain 2. So we're going to do something that's a process called rationalizing the denominator. This is the denominator. To rationalize it, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both the top and the bottom of this fraction by the denominator. Same number on top and bottom, remember, is equal to 1, so we're not changing the value of this at all. So we're basically finding sort of an equivalent fraction, but we're getting rid of this rational sign in the denominator. When we do this, we know that the bottom is just going to equal plain 2. That's what we wanted. And the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. So simplified, this would be the square root of 6 over just plain 2. Alright, this example says to write the square root of 5 over 3 in simplified form. So we write it like it is, then we're going to rationalize this denominator by multiplying by the same thing on top and bottom so as not to change the value. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 equals 3. So every time if you've done this, you're going to get rid of that square root sign here. And then the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 equals the square root of 15. So this is the simplified form of this. Alright, let's do this one. It's a little bit different. 4 plus the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 2. Now this part is going to be the same. We're going to rationalize this denominator and we're going to end up with just plain 2 over here. But here we're going to have to multiply this square root of 2 by both of these terms separately. So what we're going to have is 4 times the square root of 2 plus square root of 3 times square root of 2 is square root of 6. And this is the simplified form of this. Alright, this says simplify 2 plus the square root of 15 over square root of 5. Well, we know we're going to get rid of this thing and make it just plain 5, so we have to do this on top and bottom. We get rid of our rational sign, or our radical sign, I'm sorry, and we have just plain 5. Again, we've got to distribute this over both of these terms because they're two separate terms joined by this addition sign. So we have here 2 times the square root of 5 plus 15 times 5 is the square root of 75. Now if we're going to get this in its simplest form, this will simplify because we can break that out into 3 times 5 times 5, which simplifies to 5 times the square root of 3. So the simplest form then of this is 2 square root of 5 plus 5 square root of 3 over 5. Let's do a couple practice problems and we'll be done. Alright, we're going to simplify this, and so we're going to write it as square root of 6 over the square root of 23. We're going to rationalize this denominator. Now on the bottom we've just got plain 23. On the top, 23 times 6 is 192. I'm sorry, 198. So we have the square root of 198 over 23. Sorry, I made a mistake there. It is not 198. It is 138. So let's erase that and fix it. 138, square root of 138 over 23. Okay, one more. Alright, so we're going to rewrite this as 4 plus the square root of 5 over the square root of 3. We're going to rationalize the denominator. Which gets rid of this square root sign down here, and we have just plain 3. Now, this times this is simply 4 square root of 3 plus this times this is square root of 15, and that cannot be broken down and simplified because it's simply 3 times 5. And so this would be your simplest form, and that would be the answer. All right, good job. I'll see you tomorrow for lesson 117.